Yes, so indeed, so our long-term sustainability goal is, as mentioned, to become net zero, but also then focusing advancing circularity by kind of or increasing the use of those offerings which we have already kind of recognized. So using, as I said, recycled materials and providing services that extend product lifetime.
Got my coffee and today's guest here with me, so we're ready to roll. Welcome to the Circular Coffee Break podcast, where we will be casually talking about everything circular and beyond. Now, my guest today is Päivi Koivisto, VP Sustainability at Kalmar. So Päivi has a long history in sustainability from UPM, Cargotec, and Kalmar, and today she's developing and driving the sustainability agenda at Kalmar. I'm looking forward to talking with her about her work at Kalmar and sustainability and circularity in the heavy machinery manufacturing industry. Welcome to the show, Päivi.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here, and thanks for having me. I love the topic. Plus, I love your podcast. So really great to be a guest here.
Perfect. Thank you. And maybe to get us started, could you maybe introduce yourself briefly and share a little bit about your journey to becoming the VP of Sustainability at Kalmar and the work you're doing at Kalmar currently?
Sure, happy to. Thanks. Yes, you said I'm the heading sustainability currently at Kalmar, and that is now since April this year, so 2024. And prior to that, I worked for Cargotec in the similar role, and actually Kalmar used to be a business area of Cargotec, and we just got independent and listed in the Helsinki Stock Exchange July this year. And prior to that, I worked for a very long time in the forest industry, mainly UPM in different sustainability topics, starting actually from the environmental side. By education, I'm an environmental engineer. So basically, I've done all my career things related to sustainability, and I've really enjoyed it. So I'm happy with my decision with doing the studies there and starting my career then in the forest industry. Now, today, what we're doing in Kalmar, the kind of spearhead in sustainability is around climate, so which is, I guess, the case for many companies. Then again, circularity ties to climate and the climate actions very closely. So we need to start looking at the business models and all of that related to circularity. So then one thing which keeps me and my team and I'm sure many of my colleagues in other companies busy is the reporting to data. So the CSRD reporting requirements. But having said that and talking about reporting, we actually try to drive the action so the reporting actually would be an outcome, not kind of the target of the sustainability work we're doing. But there's a lot, and it's exciting, of course, now being an independent company and in a sense building on the good work done at Cargotec, but still a chance to kind of do it in our own way.
Yeah, interesting. And I mean, you mentioned reporting. I think that's the talk of the street at the moment. But there's naturally different ways of how to approach reporting. You can approach it as a pure reporting task, or you can basically see it as an enabler for a broader discussion across the organization, where you involve people into specific topics on that. Now, I mean, Kalmar is known for commitment to sustainability or Cargotec before. Can you maybe share some of the examples of where you are implementing sustainability or more specifically circular economy principles in your operations, in the things that you're doing at Kalmar?
Yes, sure. But maybe if I first start, maybe give a short explanation of Kalmar's business. Maybe not everyone is fully aware of what we do. So basically, as you said in your introduction as well, so we move heavy materials in supply chains around the world. So we are global, or we work globally. What we do is we offer a wide range of heavy material handling equipment. And if you think of our customers, it's mainly ports and terminals. So a lot of ports. If you visit ports, you definitely see some Kalmar equipment there moving around the containers. But also then distribution centers like in inland terminals, manufacturing and heavy logistics are the customer segments we're having. Then thinking of the equipment we offer is reach stackers, terminal tractors, forklifts, and for example, empty container handlers. So now then to your question that how do we actually implement circular economy principles into our operations, and maybe I would actually like to put it in three parts or categories, if you like, of the value chain approach. So of course, as I'm sure we all know, that we need to consider actions already in the design phase of product. So the kind of the environmental footprint of the product is mostly determined during the design phase. And that is why we try to integrate circular economy principles already there. So we focus on product durability, so making the products last as long as possible, which then of course means that we don't need to produce new equipment and get raw materials for those. We also look more and more into the service aspect of the equipment, so try to make in the design phase the equipment as easy to service as possible, which again also then helps to prolong the life cycle of the product. And then, which is, I think, one of the core things in circularity is the modularity of the equipment. So if we design the product to be as modular as possible, we make the recycling then much easier at the end of life of the equipment. So that's kind of the starting point of the equipment. Now then, if some examples of then manufacturing or sourcing of materials or using the materials for the equipment. And if you picture in your head, let's say a forklift truck, you can immediately kind of see that we produce big and heavy products which are mostly made out of steel. Then again, steel is, as we know, a finite resource, and its production causes a lot of greenhouse emissions and other emissions as well. The good thing about steel, however, is that it's 100% recyclable, and steel is actually acknowledged as the world's most recycled material. So it's a unique material in that sense, and that enables also then the circular economy principle, which is basically using recycled steel. And that is also what we try to do as much as we can, and wherever there's recycled steel available, and of course that the quality fits to our requirements. Then still, if I still kind of can build on this question about the use phase of products, so the customer end, if you like, from the value chain. So we do provide a variety of maintenance services, for instance, preventive and predictive maintenance, to keep the equipment in good shape. And that again, I'm getting to the aspect of prolonging the life cycle of products and avoiding production of new ones. So these kind of things are kind of what we see are kind of incorporated into circular thinking into our business operations. Not saying we've covered it all yet. There's a lot of untapped potential, but still there's many things. But with circularity, I think the great thing is that it can easily be connected with the business benefits, and therefore we kind of constantly look into new opportunities around the topic.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. I think you mentioned a couple of really interesting topics. And at the end of the day, I mean, as you went from the design to the production to the use phase, they go hand in hand, isn't it? I mean, in the design phase, you already have to consider what happens in the use phase. How will it be used? And how can you enable the maintenance, for example, because the modularity naturally also comes in there. If you think about some of the products we use on a daily basis, it's basically impossible to exchange the battery in many of them. So that's a design flaw that was designed in that basically creates a limitation to the longevity or the repairability of the product at the end of the day. So it goes hand in hand. How do you work across the different areas, like from the design to the production to the use phase? Because I would imagine it's naturally your own people that will be working on that, but it's also suppliers, it's also partners, it's also customers you need to work with. So how do you bring them on board to enable exactly the circularity or embedding the circularity into all these different phases of your value chain?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question because, as we know, no company alone can basically solve either the climate crisis or then kind of make the whole industry to be a circular one. So indeed, we need to collaborate. And if looking kind of at customers and collaboration with customers, and maybe not so much yet from the circularity aspect, but the one key driver for us as I mentioned in the beginning, that we focus on climate and reducing the CO2 emissions, which is also in Kalmar's strategy, is moving away from diesel-driven combustion engine products to electrified products, which is great from the climate perspective, but also then, well, they're more quiet and there's many benefits. But as any kind of driver of an electric car knows, it's a different way of operating. So you need to charge it, and that's then the key or one of the challenges with our customers. So we need to plan the infrastructure fairly early when the customer starts to think of what kind of equipment they're going to get, and key there is really collaboration with the customers at an early stage, so we can do the whole planning. And also then we have a lot of experts within Kalmar that they can really support the customers in the decision making. So there the collaboration is key. Then maybe looking, or again getting back to steel, and kind of that being one of the maybe the bad things for climate. The steel industry as such, we know they're doing a lot, which is great. And they're actually one example I could mention, because it's also publicly communicated, is Kalmar's cooperation with SSAB, which is a front runner in fossil-free steel production. So with the partnership, we're really collaborating and aiming at reducing the environmental impact of the whole industry as a forerunner together with SSAB. So there's these kind of small and big things where you can collaborate throughout the value chain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, naturally, one company's scope 1 is another company's scope 3. So from that point of view, there naturally is an interest by customers also to cooperate in that context, to make sure that they can address from scope 1 to scope 3 all their emissions in that context. Now, you mentioned some challenges. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges you're facing in promoting sustainability within your industry, within the heavy equipment and logistics industries, the harbors you mentioned, and what are your approaches to overcoming those challenges?
Yeah, it's like I said, kind of as we still, if we keep with the electrification of the fleet, it's a new way of operating. So you need to understand the whole big picture, if you like, and then kind of, I guess, the usual challenges with new or different technology are related to price and kind of the cost of changing to a new technology. And here basically then one practical tool to overcome these challenges, looking at the total cost of ownership compared to diesel and electricity, and helping the customer to understand the kind of the whole cost of the equipment. So it's there's of course there's no one solution to all of the challenges, and it depends a lot on there's maybe one challenge for us to kind of bring up the messages that the regions are very different. So in Americas, they look at different things than in Europe. And in Europe, as we know, the legislation is very demanding and kind of forces many also of our customers to go into a certain direction. And then there are the different customer segments which have different challenges. And then you have different sizes of customers, and you might have the big brand owners. For them, sustainability is a natural thing, or it just has to be in good order only if they think about the brand and reputation. So it's a wide variety of customers and asset regions, which also then on the other hand makes it interesting, and you need to look for different solutions for different challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess you see different customers, different regions being front runners, being spearheads of specific topics, of specific solutions that you can then translate into other regions, into other industries, to other customers as you move forward in that context. Now, you mentioned the regions, and you're a globally operating company. How do you see the development in the different regions? I mean, the EU naturally spearheading regulation that is on the stricter side of things, but you see other regions also going into that direction. How do you see this complexity that's being created in the supply chain, but also then in the customer interface when it comes to sustainability requirements across different regions?
It is, as you say, a very complex situation and picture. But then, as with many things, if you a bit dig deeper and scratch the surface, you find then ways how to build in the sustainability aspect. If you think of the US, and we know there's an interesting election coming soon, and let's see what then happens with the kind of climate agenda in the USA. On the other hand, there are states who probably will continue on their path and journey regardless of who is then elected. So you need to find those, and there are also then global brands which operate in a similar manner regardless of the region. But of course now, as you mentioned, Europe being kind of pushing a lot on the regulation, which then helps to at least to get to a certain level all the companies and kind of at least a certain level of awareness and actions required. Then thinking of China, which is a bit more difficult to kind of find out what's happening due to the lack of transparency. But I think lately there's been quite promising news on they have their own emission trading scheme in place and these kind of things. And as we know, when something is decided in China, then things really start to move. There might be then some other maybe not so positive side effects of that. But if and when they decide to, and I believe they will start to work more also on climate aspects, then they will move as well. So it's maybe more of a kind of the pace and where the regions are currently, and of course very much hoping that everyone is aiming then towards the same goal at some stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's surprising to see, as you said, how much China has been investing into, be it renewable energy or be it other aspects of sustainability or circularity. So I think in some areas they actually have made a leap. In others, not that much in other areas of sustainability. But I agree. Now, if we look at technology, I mean, technology will be one of the key enablers of sustainability, reducing environmental impacts, and so on and so forth. So how is Kalmar leveraging new technology? You already alluded to it a little bit earlier, but what are some of the technologies you see can actually drive or thread the needle, drive this change towards sustainability? And what are some of the technologies you're looking at Kalmar to drive that?
Yes, so maybe kind of besides of course the development in the equipment and R&D done for the equipment, which is maybe not that much known generally, that Kalmar also, and we do a lot of around data and digitalization. And actually, well, this is no longer kind of an exciting innovation in the future, but what we're already doing is related, as said, to data and digitalization, and really then advancing sustainability through digital solutions. As an example, remote and predictive maintenance. So since we collect a lot of data through our connected equipment globally, we can then really provide analysis and recommendations to our customers. So, for instance, before the equipment is broken and no longer in use, we can give advice that, hey, you would need to switch this or this part or do this service to really avoid then, first of all, that then the customer would need to go and buy a new equipment, but also then basically keeping the equipment in good condition throughout its lifetime. So that's maybe not a novel thing as such, but it's a really beneficial thing to utilize data more. And then if still thinking, I can't of course reveal anything, any kind of super exciting innovations for the future, which I might also not know, but some still looking kind of, which are to me new, is around automation and robotics. So as a concrete example, we have a portfolio which is called Kalmar Robotic Portfolio, and there we're really kind of visioning, a future vision is actually to have a fully autonomous unmanned material handling which then would lead to hopefully zero accidents since there's less people involved, but then also zero emissions and through that then kind of really maximum productivity for the customer. So I said it's still a vision, but it's realistic and we're working towards getting there.
And as you mentioned, vision and these faraway targets, how do you measure success? I mean, what is success for Kalmar in the area of sustainability? How do you measure that, and how do you track and manage that to see how you're making progress? Where do you focus your resources and your time? As I mean, no company has endless resources to throw at everything. So how do you look at like what is success and how is that measured?
Yeah, the measuring sustainability, as we know, is kind of an evergreen, and it's really tricky. And how do you do that? We have some KPIs and performance indicators, and the key is, as I mentioned already, I guess a couple of times, is around climate, and we have very ambitious climate targets, and we've just set a new net zero target, so aiming to become net zero in 2045. So that's something we, of course, then it's a fairly a long time still there, but we have then intermediate targets and follow that up. And it's not just setting a target and following how do we do, but really having a roadmap and actions in place. How do we actually then achieve this? But then one KPI which we have is the so-called eco portfolio, where we kind of have a criteria which is mostly based, if you're familiar with the EU taxonomy. So it's aligned with the EU taxonomy. And that then, in a sense, it kind of combines both the climate and circularity solutions. So it's a great KPI to follow, not only where we want to kind of electrify the fleet, but also looking then the circular solutions. And there we have things like rental and leasing services or solutions, and then the different maintenance services. So it's combining those, and it's starts to be fairly well known internally, and thus I think also then externally, at least with some of the stakeholders.
That's great to hear, because I think at the end of the day, I think we all are driven by targets. We all are driven by what we measured. So from that point of view, it's always important to have these faraway visions, as you outlined, but also more concrete targets that you can work against and that you can basically see how you're doing. Now, earlier we talked a little bit about like partners, different stakeholders, and how to involve them. And you mentioned that naturally no company can reach these targets alone. No company can be circular on their own at the end of the day. Do you maybe have some example of a partnership or a collaboration where that you can publicly talk about naturally, but also where you say that has been something that has worked for us, where we have been able to drive Kalmar's sustainability agenda with the help of different parties in that context to actually reach our targets or provide a more sustainable solution?
Yeah, it's if I kind of answer a bit more broadly, it's again, if you think of the climate or circularity targets, it's a lot to deal with the customers, and we have front runner customers who have their targets of their own, and as you already said, that one company scope 1 and 2 is one other company scope 3. So basically, kind of offering overall solutions for the equipment and the material handling for our customers helps to collaborate and basically then understanding what the actual challenges are the customer is dealing with. Then of course only we can together look at the solutions. Then again, the kind of maybe a bit still untapped potential around circularity is then links to the recycling of batteries. So of course, if you go more electric, then in the end we start having these kind of used batteries in our hands, and basically you can kind of in some cases you can reuse the battery to another equipment, maybe where the kind of the requirements are not as high as for the heavy material handling equipment. Or then we touched a bit the modularity earlier, so you can kind of reuse the materials of the battery in different applications. But I would say that there's still quite some things we need to solve there. But I think this is a very good example of kind of collaboration that needs to happen between several parties. So you would need to have us as the machinery provider, then you have the customer who then in the end, once the equipment is no longer used, decides what to do basically with it. And then you would need to have a recycler or kind of someone taking care of the battery as such. And this, I think, there are some kind of initial thoughts and plans, but we're not yet very far there. But it's also a great business opportunity for the players in the ecosystem.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think it's a journey, and you cannot address everything at the same time. You need to prioritize, but you need to make sure that you're moving forward. And I think that's the important thing, that you take action continuously rather than just doing something once and then stopping after that. Now, the coffee is unfortunately empty, but before I let you go, Päivi, maybe one question. I mean, looking ahead. We said Kalmar just got independent, you just got listed. From your point of view, what are your long-term goals for sustainability at Kalmar? And how do you see the role of circularity evolving in that context at Kalmar going forward over the next decade?
Yes, so indeed, so our long-term sustainability goal is, as mentioned, to become net zero, but also then focusing advancing circularity by kind of increasing the use of those offerings which we have already kind of recognized. So using, as I said, recycled materials and providing services that extend product lifetime. But over the next decade, I would envision that Kalmar will really expand the role in circular economy practices. Again, a bit touching the topic we just discussed on the batteries. So really looking kind of what new things are there and what new things do we need to really consider in order to be really sustainable then going forward. And then really maximize resource efficiency, because as we know, we can't kind of continue the way we're doing business today. So it's through the services potential. It's through the different business models. So is it more rental and leasing and these kind of things? So really looking into a low carbon circular economy overall, hopefully not just Kalmar, but the whole industry.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot. As mentioned, the coffee is unfortunately empty, and it's time to wrap up the episode of the Circular Coffee Break. Thanks a lot, Päivi, for joining me today and for sharing a little bit what you're doing at Kalmar and what your plans are for the future.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Great. For all of you listening out there, as always, we hope you found some new nuggets of wisdom or experience or motivation or anything new that you can apply in your context. We are looking to build the Circular Coffee Break community to share best practices, ideas, and motivate individuals and companies to move towards circularity. So if you like what we're doing, please share the podcast with friends, family, your network, and everyone you feel could be interested in learning about these solutions, these ideas, these insights. And we're very happy to have you all here and suggesting new guests and telling us how to improve the podcast. So feel free to reach out also in the future, as many of you have already done. The only thing left for me is to thank you for listening today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all here at the Circular Coffee Break podcast.